We're Astley Media. We're a growing marketing and PR agency working across the Southwest. Our clients are most predominantly in the tech, education, infrastructure and public sector brands and organisations. So our objective when working with companies is to discover the possibilities for their brand and really try and find their true potential. So we spend a lot of time getting to know the company, understanding its competitors, its sector, but most importantly, the challenges and opportunities to help push them to think differently and be brave. And that's our aim today, to get you to sort of start thinking about creative ways to connect with your audience and think differently in order to build your brand awareness.
Thanks, Caroline. Next slide, please, Jo. So these are some of the brands that we are working with currently. We've got regional brands such as ISP startup Jurassic Fibre, Exeter and Plymouth Science Parks, and IT and tech support brand Time Wade. We've also got national brands like Stagecoach and Sandair, and the global brands like Kano Insight and Intelligent AI. Caroline?
Next slide, please, Jo. So this is our 5 steps model. It's a model that we often use with clients to start to inform their marketing strategy. So I'm just going to whiz around them quickly just to explain them in brief. So the first one is you, the storyteller. So people connect with stories, and marketing these days is based more and more around storytelling, whether that be your brand story and or the people involved. Also often using storytelling and the stories of their clients' customers to showcase the difference they make is something that brands, really find really successful in their marketing. Stand up and stand out, quite an obvious one, but something we think is important to always draw back to. What's your differentiator and how do you communicate it? Also, how do you market yourself in different ways? Being a go-giver is all about offering people a sample of your brand, quite often through samples or expertise, knowledge, depending on your product or service. Lots of brands do free trials and offers, and of course, lots do corporate and sociability work as well. Just a brief example of this is Joe Wicks, the body coach, which many of you will have heard of, and lots of other people did free stuff over lockdown. I'm sure he was obviously running the PE with Joe sessions for free for all the school children that were off. I'm sure they're all very lovely, genuine reasons for doing so. However, it was also done brilliant things for his brand, and there's lots of new products and things on the back of that. Be your own publisher. This is all about, the traditional media is in decline, and whilst it's still important in many sectors, using your own publisher tools, whether that's your website, blogs, social channels, etc., is hugely important these days, and there's an opportunity there for people to publish their own content. We help people to find out the right channels for them, as it's certainly not about doing it all and then taking on too much. And building your tribe is all about finding and nurturing your advocates, your brand advocates, whether that be connections in your network, partners, the media, or customers.
Next slide, please, Jo. So today is all about activating your marketing strategy, building a successful tech brand. So for startups, one of the likely objectives will be to create brand awareness and also connect with your audience. So they're the sort of 2 areas we're going to focus on. Jo, next slide, please. So, great Apple ad, but most companies, especially startups, don't have that kind of brand power or budget advertising. So they need to be a bit more creative in their approach, and that's why we aim to help. That's what we aim to help you with today. So we're going to take you through 4 key tactics that can help you achieve the stand up and stand out Caroline referred to. Next slide, please, Jo. So tactic 1 is building your tribe by engaging your brand advocates. Next slide, please, Jo. So this is about identifying your brand advocates or ambassadors. They are people that from the get-go will champion your brand. So your advocates can be journalists, influencers, sector or membership organisations, collaborators, investors, local government, social media influencers, and of course your clients or customers and employees. Next slide, please, Jo. So a case study we can share with you today to demonstrate how you successfully build your tribe or your group of advocates even before you launch is Jurassic Fibre. They are a fairly new startup, about 3 years old, delivering fast fibre broadband to premises in rural towns and villages overlooked by those bigger ISPs. We started working with them pre-launch, and immediately realised that local community buy-in would be absolutely central to their common strategy in their targeted network areas. So we started working hard to build relationships with local government and landowners, parish councils and local communities. Next slide, please, Jo. So activities that we undertook were things like presentations to local community and village halls, one-to-one meetings with stakeholders, and partnership events and also focus groups. But the real value and the real difference came from the messaging that we built around identifying the problem that people had with their broadband and offering people a much needed solution. So instead of pushing the products, we focused on the positive difference JF were going to make, and the brand advocates were really great at and instrumental in doing that. Next slide, please, Jo. So we implemented that sort of pre-launch, and then that carried over into the launch when we continued to recruit potential customers with an enthusiasm for the brand to become brand ambassadors. And they represented the various audience personas that we'd identified. And they featured in a multi-channel marketing campaign. So as you can see here, a few sort of ads with quotes from those people as to why that better broadband or fast broadband was really important to them. Next slide, please, Jo. So the second
tactic we're looking
sorry,
at
is this you? Sorry, I thought it was me.
Engaging hard to reach audiences by standing up and standing out. Next slide, please, Jo. Often we find that brands have customers or clients that are especially hard to connect with and get in front of by conventional marketing and PR methods alone. And over the years, we've met clients who are frustrated and feel they've tried anything and everything to engage with these audiences. So when tasked with coming up with ideas, the first thing we will do is hold a discovery session and maybe potentially go back to those 5 steps I talked about earlier to identify means to connect with these people, which isn't a hard selling. We can give you a couple of quick examples here of successful campaigns that illustrate this. Next slide, please, Jo. So client TimeWade had a good existing client base but wanted to grow and needed to connect with potential new audiences. At the time when they first came to us, they described themselves as an IT service provider, which is nothing very wow, stand out, as lots of companies obviously say the same. We spent a lot of time with them in this discovery phase to really dig deep and find out what made them stand out and would attract potential new customers and how we could communicate that in a new way. They operate in a fairly crowded market and their style and culture is very non-sales pushy. So we wanted to rebrand and develop a subsequent campaign that matched this and showcase their brand. We discovered through lots of the digging deep that actually they were all about using technology to help businesses and organisations succeed. So we decided to use technology for success as a basis for the rebrand and ongoing campaign to relaunch them into the Southwest marketplace. One of the main strands of activity was to develop an annual report, and this would be a way to start to reach out to new connections in a non-salesy way. We also commissioned a survey, and lots of Southwest businesses commented on how they're using tech to drive productivity and growth. The businesses in turn then received a free insight report featuring the survey results, which gave everyone lots of content to start talking about. And on the back of the report, we decided to set up a new business group, the Technology for Success business group, with guests and subsequent webinars. This campaign overall started over 2 years ago and is still going strong. The team have developed many new connections and leads and are now having something to focus their marketing activity around. And the main thing is they are now connected to some very big name players in the Southwest. And before they would have found it very hard to get an in with them beforehand. Next slide, Jo, please.
All right, so the second example is Property Search Group. So they were really keen to extend their audience reach and engage with law firms in Exeter. So what we did is we came up with an art-inspired campaign driven by their desire to support the fire fund after the Clarence fire in Exeter Cathedral Yard. We got solicitors involved and we had an idea for a painting the solicitors would be depicted in, and then we decided to auction it to raise funds for the fire fund. So property search group who have found it very hard to get in front of their hard to reach solicitors, suddenly had lots of interactions with them over a period of time due to the sort of charity campaign. Next slide, please, Joe. So the results of that campaign, as you can see here, were really, really compelling. But the most important one was that PSG managed to connect with 40 senior legal representatives in the city, and that was unbelievable, really, as managing partners, etc. And out of that, they got 12 one-to-one meetings secured for potential business. Next slide, please, Joe. So tactic 3 is the PR hook. So it's really, really hard now to get media coverage. The media landscape has changed dramatically, and it's not good enough to have a great business story. You've got to come up with something that's a bit sort of altruistic and a bit sort of different. So when they're coming up with ideas for news hooks, there are 5 key themes that you may wish to consider. And we're going to give you an example of a client that we're working with at the moment. Next slide, please, Joe. Next slide, please, Joe. So these are the sort of things that you need to consider, really. Finding out what the news hook is, looking at trending news and events. So what's really sort of trending in your sector, but also in the news across the UK, and perhaps if you have a global audience internationally. And then, have you got any unique insights and data that you can share with your audience? Media love that, you know, if it's really different and compelling. And also key calendar dates. Are there dates in the calendar, you know, in your sector's calendar that you can comment on and be involved with, such as conferences and various events? And this is probably the most important one, human elements. How does your product or service benefit the audience and make their lives better? So that's the altruistic thing, you know, you're doing something for a higher purpose. It's not, of course, it's about making money, but it's also about, you know, making people's lives better. So next slide, please, Joe. So the client I was talking about, this is the client we're working with at the moment, Intelligent AI. They are a global brand, and they are creating a real-time data and intelligent risk platform for the commercial property sector. So the first theme that we identified was data. The company had created and compelling stats to support their proposition about, you know, how their platform can make a real difference to the commercial property sector. And secondly, the human-centered benefit, the idea that this type of tech innovation could ultimately guard against tragedies like Grenfell happening and save lives. So we combined the sort of data angle with the human interest angle, and that sort of made for a really strong sort of non-commercial news release that the editorial teams were really interested in. So we've got quite a lot of media coverage. This is one example here. Next slide, please, Joe. And you can see here that we got something like 20.4K views of that media coverage. That's really good. We got sort of 12 major pieces. We've been in sort of we've got Intelligent AI in all those sort of key industry titles, tech titles, etc. Next slide, please, Joe. So that sort of concludes our presentation today, and
we managed to do it by 11 o'clock. We were a bit worried that we'd be talking too much.
Yeah, that was quite a very, very quick run through. But
yeah. So we love working with ambitious brands. We're averaging sort of starting up with 2 to 3 new brands each month, but we do have the capacity to take on more. We'd love to connect with you. We'd love to chat. If you're interested in talking to us, want to have a bit of a chat about how we could help you, then please connect with us on social media. Caroline Orr and Emma McLeod, our name should be within this event somewhere at Astley Media. So connect with us on LinkedIn or give us a ring or email us. We love connecting with new people and chatting and hearing about businesses that are starting up or maybe going through a process of their journey, their growth journey. If you want to have a chat, then please, we'd love to speak to you.
I think our LinkedIn profiles are on the Hopin, our Hopin ID, so you can find us there.
Yeah, so thank you so much for attending today and listening to us. I hope it was useful, and we'll hopefully meet some of you and speak to some of you soon.
Great, thank you.
Thanks a lot, everyone. Bye-bye.